Hello everyone. So in this problem, let us talk about from a Codeforces problem named unit array. So you're given an array A of length n, which has elements -1 and 1. Okay. Now let us call a array good if it follows the given condition that the sum of all the elements. So the elements has -1 and 1, and the sum of the elements should be greater than or equal to 0, which means that there are more ones than minus ones, or like greater than or equal to. So one should be greater than or equal to minus ones. Okay, and the multiplication should be equal to one, which means that like they should cancel out each other. The minus ones, so one's multiplication doesn't matter. Minus one should be even. This means that the minus one count should be even, and this just means that the number of ones should be greater than equal to the number of minus ones. Okay, and what you can do is that in any operation you can flip. You can change -1 to 1 or 1 to -1, and the minimum of operations you required to make it a good array. Okay, so as I've told you, there we require two conditions. The first one is the number of ones or number of zero or minus ones. We first require that. So what we can do is we can first find out the count of number of negatives and number of positives. Okay. Now the number of positives are already greater than the number of negatives, or greater than equal to number of negatives. If they're already greater than negatives, then which means that we already have fulfilled the first conditions. Now the next condition is that the number of negatives should be even. If it is odd, then flip one. Okay, just to convert. So if the number of negatives are odd, then the answer is one. Or the answer is zero if it is already even, given the condition that the positives are greater than or equal to negatives. Okay, that is one thing. The next thing is that if the positives are less than. So if the positives are less than, which means that let's say there are some two ones and four minus ones. Okay, so which means that we have to first somehow gather this condition. Now let's say I've tried to make ones greater than -1, which means that I have to somehow flip the -1 to 1. Okay, if I somehow flip the -1 to 1, which means that at every flip of -1 to 1, the total score, the total sum of the array increased by 2, because so as you can see, uh, initially it was, let's say, -4 plus 2. Okay, -4 plus 2. But then if I make it plus 1, it is, as you can see, -3 plus 3. So which means that obviously this has also, like, it is like increment of 2. So now the total sum is just incremented by 2, which means that if I have to make this positive, whatever number of negatives and positives are there, if I flip the negatives to 1, the total sum, you can say I have to somehow make my total sum equal to 0 then, because it is already negative. I have to somehow make it 0 or positive. So which means that if I have number of, let's say, equal to 4, number of negatives are 4, we can divide it by 2, because I just have to not negatives also. I have to first find out the total sum that I have. The total sum that I have is -4 negatives. So initially, if I just move everything out, it has -4s, -1, -1, -1, -1, and two plus ones. So -4, and then plus 2, which means that -2. So I have -2. So if I divide it by 2, which means that, so if I have, okay, not mine, like I'll just take a like value of not minus. I can take a value of counts also. Like I have -4s. Like I have, so how many fours I have? -4s. And how many positives I have? Two, which means I have two as a difference. So to get a two as a difference, I will divide it by two, which means that I have to just flip one. Why divided by two? Because I should not, like, for every, like, the count will increment by 2 if I just flip by 1. If I flip 1, then the count will increment 2. So the number of changes I need to do is just 1, because I just have to make it balance out. Okay, I have to just remove this out. So I will have to just make one move. Then if I like remove, like this, like if I switch this number of ones, if I switch this number of ones, my again this condition will be satisfied. And if the first condition is satisfied, we already checked that if the first condition is satisfied, the number of negatives should be even. If it is not, then I have to do one more flip. Okay, that's the only thing. Nothing much complicated. You just have to take look of different cases, and that's it. Nothing much complicated itself. Let's move on to the code part now. It's a very simple problem as well. We have negative and positive, iterate over the whole array, and find the number of positives as well. So I have number of negatives and positive. Now if the positives are already greater than equal to negatives, then the answer is just how many, if the negative is odd or even. If it is even, the answer is 0. If the number is odd, then print out 1, because I have to do one switch. If now the number of, you can say, negatives are larger, then I have to divide and find out the number of negatives minus positive plus 1 divided by 2. That is how many changes I need to do. That will tell me how many changes I need to do. So if that much changes I need to do, then which means that that number of negatives are converted to positive. So if that number of negatives converted to positive, negatives will decrease by this. So this is the new negatives, because that number of negatives are removed. So this number of changes help us to know how many flips are there. Then the negatives new will be negative minus this number of totals, because that number of I have switched. Now the first condition is satisfied, which means the number of negatives and positives are now balancing out. Now you just have to ensure that the number of negatives that I have should be odd or even. If it is odd, then one more increment will be there to flip that negative odd, uh, like negative odd number to again positive, so that they again balance out and it may just print out. Okay, so these are the different cases I have, and that satisfies the whole condition. Okay, that's the overall logical good part of this problem. If you still have any doubts, you can mention in the comment box or this particular video. See you next one. Leave coding and bye.